It feels so great to be back home once again. It's been a very long time. I know you enjoyed your vacation, didn't you, buddy? I know I did too. Alright, let's go into my office for a little bit and let's catch up on a few things, shall we? You go ahead and hang out right there while I take care of some stuff here on my laptop. Alright, so let's see what's going on here. What? Another story about these creatures? What does the fandom have against these guys? Like, what did these types of creatures ever do to you? Hey! Haven't seen you guys in a very long time. Hey everybody, it's Dr. Detroit here, the doctor is in. And, me and Foxy just returned from a beautiful vacation. Meanwhile, while my brother, Arlo, the traveling Nardo, was over at Furry Samba. Unfortunately, I couldn't go. But thankfully though, my traveling brother was able to go for me. But right now, as soon as we come back, I'm met with a story right here. It seems as though the furry fandom seems to absolutely have a hate boner towards Protogens. You don't know what a Protogen is? Well, they're kind of an interesting creature, and they're also in the furry fandom. But it seems like a lot of different people seem to have a bad taste for them. Well, in this Vrchat 101, as we finally return to the airwaves, you guys and I are going to debunk some of these myths. In fact, we're actually going to talk to a real Protogen. That's right. I'm inviting a friend of mine to come on here and debunk some myths about Protogens in a little segment I like to call MYTHBUSTING, the case of the Protogen. And guess what, everybody? We filmed a new intro. So, roll the new intro. So, Protogens. That's the topic of today's video, and joining me for this is a real Protogen. We have my good buddy Amethyst here. Say hello to the folks at home.
Hello! I'll just be on the channel for a brief bit to talk about my personal favorite species, the Protogens.
Yeah, now, you know what? Before we actually go to the red board, I want to ask you something about that. Like, how does it feel to be a Protogen? You know, what's it like?
Well, for me, it is nice having both synthetic and organic parts. It really helps overwhelm, and plus, it is nice using computer syntax. It's nice. Plus, the customization options, pretty much endless.
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, I've seen a lot of you guys just scattered throughout VRChat, either in packs, or causing chaos in other worlds and things like that. But I know that a lot of you guys get a really bad name, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's one of the parts of being a Protogen, but I don't really let it affect me that much. I do think of it as one of the starter species in the furry fandom, but once people have a good latch onto it, I believe that Protogens never leave your heart.
Amazing. Well, here's the good news. We're going to be debunking a couple of these myths, and that's why you're actually here. So, to begin debunking these myths, let's go to my red board and we'll illustrate a little bit and find out a bit more about Protogen. So, over to my red board, right about now. There we are. We're back here in front of my famous red board, I should say. And of course, Mr. Foxy, as usual, is back with us. And Mr. Foxy's also holding a pen in his mouth. He's actually really good at it. He had a really good vacation, just like me. So now, Amethyst, we're here in front of the red board where you can basically illustrate, all the different things. And we talked about this a little bit beforehand, but I gotta ask you, and please don't take this the wrong way, but what the hell is a Protogen?
Well, I'm glad you asked. For me, and because I just read the Protogen lore document, a Protogen is a mix of a cybernetic and organic species, complete with modulations to help them pretty much do any task imaginable.
Amazing. So like now you say that you have modulations and stuff like that, but what are you if you don't have those modulations? Because obviously I can see that you have the helmet, I see the glowing pads and stuff like that. What would you be without those?
Well, originally, Protogens were an old prehistoric species spanning at least, a few thousand years ago, on a deserted planet where a super intelligent species called the primogenitors, or the creators, as we Protogen like to call them, picked up their DNA and used them in some kind of laboratory. And from that DNA, they made pretty much the perfect template that the Protogen were created from.
Amazing. Because you guys basically are kind of a cross between a lizard and a dinosaur almost, because you guys have that big old tail on the back, and also all this beautiful floof right here and everything like that. But I always see you guys, like run around in all different shapes and sizes. But yeah, that is crazy.
Thank you.
So
I take pride in my augmentations.
So okay, so if what you're saying is true, so basically you guys came from some sort of out of this world galaxy, and then in came the Protogens. So let me see if I can make a little Protogen head here, so that way we can understand this a little bit better. So in other words, now you guys actually have the helmets and things like that. As we just had a character run through here. Oh my god. Oh,
I'm
shoot.
so sorry.
That's okay.
You're
Look at
fine.
this, everybody.
You're fine.
Hey, here, hold on a sec. Come in here really quickly. This is basically a cameo by the one and only Drive-By Fox. You guys have seen him before and things like that. He's actually the one that's operating the boom mics that are actually up above us right now. So anyway, that's him. You can go ahead and go back behind one of the cameras over there. In fact, if you go to your right and go to that, perfect. That's right there. That's perfect. That's good. Okay, back to this. You never know what's going to happen here in Vrchat 101. Okay, so you go ahead now. Yeah. Now, okay, so you guys are basically infused with, this type of technology and stuff?
Yeah, pretty much.
Amazing. Now, okay, here's something that's rather interesting. I have heard that in the furry fandom, your kind gets a really bad name. In fact, I actually remember reading that there was one game out there. I forget what it's called. I don't think it was Repo or something. It was one of those. It was one of those viral ones.
Toaster Arena?
Something like that, but it was actually a bit more dark. That somebody made a Protogen mod that turned all the characters into Protogens, and it made a lot of furries extremely angry to the point where on Twitter X and all these other places, they put in their profiles Protogens DNI, do not interact. But I have to ask you, what did you guys do or not do to cause this uproar? Like, why do Protogens get frowned upon in the furry fandom?
Well, I would mostly chalk it up to the semi-closed nature of the species, because according to the creator, you can build your own Protogen, but to them, it has to stay within the guidelines of the lore and the species. So
I see.
no crazy augmentations like 3 sets of ears or fully functioning wings.
Interesting. So,
Personally,
go ahead.
person, go on, go on.
No, no, you go ahead. You go ahead. You're good.
Well, personally, I believe that Protogens should be available for at least everyone to experience.
I see.
No matter
So,
no matter what kind of guidelines or rules are set in place, you can't really put a price tag or a limit on creative ideas.
that's true. That's very very true. It's even similar for us Nardos, but unfortunately we do not possess the technology and stuff that you guys
Ooh.
do. Now, in this handbook, what are some of like the biggest no-nos when it comes to creating a protogen? Like what are the big
Ah,
no-nos?
that I am well versed in,
All right, let's see.
because if I were to draw an example here,
Yeah,
I'm
go for it.
sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. That's fine.
Basically, a protogen has to have at least a few requirements. You have to
Interesting.
have the visor,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have the chest panel, of course.
Okay. So basically, your
The
faceplate is what's called the visor, correct?
exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
You
Go ahead.
have to have arms.
Mm-hmm.
Then down here, you have the leg armor, just a
Uh-huh.
simple quick sketch. The
Yeah.
groin plate, and of course, a tail, which is not optional, but I like to include it anyways.
Yeah, because I think some of us do look pretty cool in a tail. So those are okay. So those are the main requirements. Is that you gotta have the visor, the plates, and everything else. Which right now you have those. And I also
Exactly.
noticed. I also noticed too. And if you actually face the camera right there, you actually have two different colored eyes. Like this one right here is yellow, and the other one is pink, which I think is pretty cool.
Thank you. Like I said, protogens are customizable.
Yeah, now what about the symbols that are on you? Because I see on the side here that you have these interesting symbols that don't really pertain to any language or anything like that. But what are those symbols symbolic of?
Well, for protogens, the symbols on the sides of the protogen are mostly indicative of like their personality, their
Hmm.
job description. Like if a protogen was designed for piloting a spaceship, they would
Mm-hmm.
have like a planet or a plane as their symbol.
Interesting. Okay.
I It's not the closest similarity, but think of it kind of like cutie marks for My Little Pony in a sense.
I see. That is rather interesting. Okay, because I always wondered like what those symbols mean, and it's a good thing that you mentioned that and everything. And I also saw too that you guys are extremely colorful, and oftentimes you're either very floofy or you're not as floofy, and so like obviously you are a pink or like magenta, excuse me, magenta-ish protogen. What is the most common color for a protogen?
Well, there isn't really a common color per se, as there
Hmm.
is common color combinations.
Oh, I see.
Because usually your base protogen would have one color for their fur
Mm-hmm.
and another color for their armor.
Ah, okay. So you basically are going for the two-tone effect almost.
Mm-mm.
Interesting, because you know what? After you said that, I'm looking at this pink and gold kind of color that you have. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like a pink lemonade drink almost. Like you get those like
Don't
those
worry.
frozen
I
pink
get that a
lemonades.
lot.
Yeah, and it actually looks really calming and things like that. So, all right, so we kind of know a little bit about all the different things about Persians, but let's also bust a myth here really quickly. Now,
Oh?
yeah, because I did mention actually I thought about this earlier because you mentioned about the thigh armor and stuff like that. Why do you guys have such humongous thighs? Is it from like your ancestors, or is it because it's big because it protects you guys from like getting chomped by either a giant Rex or like a small yapping Tatum?
Well, that I can pretty much chalk up to the biology of the species, but
Hmm.
I guess in a lore kind of sense, strong legs would allow for easier climbing and jumping abilities.
I see. So you guys, ugh, Jesus, I said puberty for the thirty
And
fourth
plus,
time. Hmm. Go for it.
and plus, with all this armor on, you need strong legs to support everything.
Interesting.
Just imagine how much it weighs wearing armor 24/7.
Good lord. So you guys basically have a lot of stamina to keep this armor up and everything.
Exactly.
That is crazy. And yeah, I've always seen you guys like either on Space Worlds or anything like that, and I have seen different symbols and everything. But so if one wants to be a Protogen, like let's say the viewers at home right now who may be undecided on what they want to be. They're probably stuck
It'll be
between
fun, I
being
promise.
like whether they're stuck between being a Rexium or a Tatum or a Nardo or something like that. What is something to always remember when you are a Protogen, or like when choosing to be one?
Well, when you want to choose to become a protogen, you don't really get the same expressions because, as you can see on the Nardo here, you get like lips, eyelids, eyebrows. For a visor, you don't really get that much, but it does come with the added benefit of getting some extra color put in because I've seen some people who have split mouth colors and different designs over the visor, kind of like face tattoos in a sense.
Interesting, because the other thing too is that when you were actually facing forward, your face kind of almost looked like a jack o' lantern. Do you get that a lot too?
Oh yes, it is a meme that front-facing protogens always look a little weird. That's why they're always drawn from 3/4 or the side, just to avoid any unintended consequences.
Yeah, actually, I have seen a lot of fan art of Protogens, and I've always seen that where you guys are either shown from the side profile or the 3/4, or sometimes from the very back, and like turning your head like this to kind of do something like that. So now, okay, so we covered those bases, and there's actually two more things that I want to know. Um, okay, so when you become a Protogen, what is one major red flag that you know that Protogen is going to be a piece of work?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I can't say myself that every protogen design is bad per
Mm-hmm.
se,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, it's when the visor part is removable.
Oh, I see.
Because to me, the whole point of a protogen is like this stuff, it is welded on. It is staying on.
Right.
If you can
Interesting.
take the visor off and just put it back on again, yes, it can technically be counted as a protogen, but if it just has the visor off all the time, can it really be counted as such?
That's a good point because I have seen a couple of you guys have the removable mask, and in a way, it sort of reminds me a little bit of like in Return of the Jedi. When Luke unmasks Darth Vader, and there's the old Anakin Skywalker, or even something like when on Top Gear when the Stig removed his helmet, and it was a seven-time world champion Michael Schumacher. And so that's interesting. So basically, the mask itself or the visor is your identity. So it's basically a rule of thumb to once that thing is on, it stays on until the day you die.
Pretty much. The visor is one of the most common, if not recognizable, features of the protogen.
Yeah. I've seen that. I've also seen a few Nardogens before, which kind of look a little bit awkward because the thing is that I don't have the big ass legs like you do. Mine are just kind of skinny because us Nardos we actually can climb pretty quick and we are pretty fast on land, but boy, in that armor I think I would literally just fall to the ground and just like literally be like. "Ugh." Now,
And like, don't worry. It's easy to augment regular species into protogens, hybrids,
nice.
if you will.
Oh
All
yeah.
it takes is the correctly shaped visor,
Mm-hmm.
comfortable panels built out of lightweight metal so you don't immediately fall to the floor,
Oh, gotcha.
and at least some kind of neural augmentation so you can pretty much control the expressions with your mind.
Nice. Now, before we go into our next segment, I got one final question, and this is actually a myth that I absolutely want to know about. Where did the
Shoot.
joke? Where did the two jokes come from? Of like you guys basically being walking toasters, and then what is with Protogens and RAM?
That myself, I don't exactly have the answer to, but I would think of it as, Protogens have a screen, they're cyborgs in a way. You could make the parallel that Protogens are living computers. And
Oh,
computers always want to have more RAM, so
right.
it's become a running joke in the community that Protogens eat computer parts, especially RAM chips.
I see. So you guys have heard it so many times, like oh hey look it's the RAM meter, or hey look it's a Protogen, he needs all the RAM he can get. So have you had like people just run up to you and be like here eat this RAM, or like oh look RAM meter.
A few times, yes. A couple of times, people have literally brought a bottle of Windex onto me, sprayed my visor, and just went.
Oh, they put Windex on you? Oh my god.
Yeah.
That is. Oh.
Like, thankfully, they used something biodegradable, and hey, I do appreciate the thing to keep your visors clean.
Nice. That's pretty good. Well, we have actually debunked a few things here, but now it's time for something really cool. What you're about to see next is something that's gonna be not mind blowing, because I'm gonna have him teach me a little bit about how to be a Persian. So give me a second while I change costume. So for the magic of editing, we moved to my grand piano, and as you can see, I'm actually a Persian right now. I'm actually a Windows 95 Persian. I think it's called Proto 95.
Yeah. It's a good display of the different kind of Protogen avatars that people make.
Yeah, like you see the Windows 95. I mean the Windows logo here on my sides and stuff like that. So okay, so now I am pretty much a Protogen. So all right, so go ahead and tell me about this, because you know what, we're now in the portion where we're going to be doing like a do this not that. So what are some of the do's and don'ts of being one of you guys?
I would say that a few do's is pretty much just being yourself.
Okay, so being yourself. So in other words, like it's
Yeah.
kind of the same way that I usually tell my viewers is to just be yourselves. You don't need to act like an influencer. You don't need to be like a bully. You don't need to do anything foolish. Go ahead.
And you don't need to be a caricature either. No, ooh, beep, beep, I'm a toaster. Give me RAM, please. You don't need to do all that. Completely unnecessary.
Right.
Though,
So
the occasional stick of RAM would be appreciated.
okay, so basically don't be alright, so don't be a character. Unless now if somebody wants to be a character, would it be okay if they were like doing their own lore in a way?
Of course. I like to think that the Zenith's Outer Guide lore, or Zor as you will, is not really something to be followed too strictly. I think of it as a jumping board to create your own lore.
Interesting. Okay. All right, so we now have a couple of the do's and don'ts.
That's where you get that's the difference between all the cool spacefaring and adventure protogens and the I like this design, I'm going to keep it. No lore or anything. I just really like it kind of protogens.
Amazing. Okay. So now, what's one of the biggest don'ts for a protogen? Like, what is the cardinal sin of protogens?
For me, don't be a white knight. That is my number one red flag when it comes to protogens. Like, imagine if I walk up to someone and their avatar has like a rare restricted feature or something, or just like something that, let's just say for example, that my personal allure or opinion doesn't agree with. Don't come up to them and like, hey, you can't be like that. That's against the rules. You have to change that avatar now. Do it. Well, they wouldn't be that forceful, but they wouldn't be that annoying.
Right, but you did get a good example though, because you know what? White knights always cause problems, especially when it comes to every single fandom. I don't care what species you are. I don't care if you're another protege watching this. But yeah, being a white knight is always a big time no. So all right,
exactly.
So don't be a character unless it goes with your lore, and don't be a white knight. Okay, now what's kind of that unwritten rule of Protogens, like where it's almost like it isn't wrong, but we just don't do it.
Well, I would. That's actually kind of a hard one.
Okay.
I would say, like, you don't really see a Protogen, like, just taking off their limbs in front of someone. Shout out, because Protogens are actually pretty modular. It comes with a job. But wouldn't it be weird to just see someone detach their own limb?
Oh,
You'd kind of be disturbed, right?
Yeah, I mean, even if there was like, no blood whatsoever, or anything like that. I mean,
think of it like a Barbie doll.
Exactly. I mean, sure, stuff these days costs an arm and a limb, but you don't need to rip off your own limbs. The dang Protogen. That's probably a good thing here. And then, I also noticed something interesting too, and both you and I have it too, that we actually have a little bit of fluff down there on our stomachs, which is actually rather cute. Like
it's just how the model is made.
Interesting, because okay, now when people come up to pet a Protogen, what do you tell them, and is it more about preference, or do Protogens not take pets?
Well, whether you want pets or not is pretty much your own personal preference, but for me, I am one to love giving and receiving affection, so if I may,
go for it.
What you can do is you can put your hand on the top of the Protogen visor and rub like this. Since there is no technical since the snoot is technically a part of the face, you can extend onto the head fluff itself.
Nice. Oh my goodness, that's good. I've never been petted as a Protogen before. Oh, all right. Make sure, future me, strike that off the bucket list right now. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
I told you you'd like it.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so now let me also figure this out here too. Now, how about this height? Because I've actually noticed that you guys tend to be at a decent height, whether you be kind of like a little bit tall or like small. Like I have never seen a 10-story tall Protogen. Okay, I just have never seen one before.
You'd be surprised, but it comes with everything. It's part of being a furry, hun. But
Yes.
But what I would say, the typical range for a Protogen would be around 5'6". You can find Protogens usually as short as 4 feet, or as tall as 8 feet.
I see. Okay.
That's just from what I've seen being in the Protogen community for, years?
Right. So basically, if we can imagine, usually I'm like 5'10" when it comes to my Nardo. So 5'6", that would mean that your eyes would basically come up. So if you were like 5'6", then you would be like almost like at my shoulder blade. But anything lower than that, you'd be at my belly button.
Yeah.
That interesting? So,
Actually,
man, go ahead.
just actually for the sake of this video, I've set my avatar to my own real height. This is actually how tall the Protogen model regularly is, 1.5 meters.
Oh, that's cute. So I'm
Right?
a little bit taller than you are, and I almost feel like that
Yeah.
the mid height you guys are, the cuter the Protogen.
That's why you see a few chibi gens going around in Vrchat worlds.
Amazing. Now, okay, here's one that I just remembered something about. So, what how can you tell when somebody is a fake Protogen? Like what if somebody has a similar model to yours, but how can you tell if they're like a fake Protogen?
Well, there are a few methods. First of all, it comes with recognizing the Protogen base.
Okay.
Because I actually used to have a Protogen avatar that did have a removable face, but I'd have to check that later.
Right,
Or
that's
now
fine.
if you want.
Yeah, actually, no, because you know what you said earlier that they need to keep their face on. So let's just keep your visor on.
Mostly
that
for
way-
Oh no, not this one. No.
Right. Yeah, you know what? Let's keep all the Protogens masked. But go ahead. What was the
True.
other thing?
It depends. Well, in Vrchat, it's actually pretty easy because you can tell that it's a fake Protogen or at least a hybrid of one when it's pretty much just a regular like Rexium or Tatum or other kind of species base, but with a Protogen visor slapped on.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So basically,
It's even more noticeable if it outlines the snout shape. Usually, Protogen visors are rounded or some kind of concave shape.
Right.
No, convex, I mean. Concave would be an actual snoot indent.
Right. Because you know what? I'm actually looking into my viewfinder right now, and I can see how yours, is rounded. This one here is slightly pointed, but it basically is like it comes down this way, and then just kind of like comes down, further that way. So in other words,
Exactly.
we have two different Protogen helmets on right now. Okay, so basically, it's to see if if there's a snoot in there, and if they have like fake parts. And I guess another dead giveaway would be that they don't have the big thighs.
Not usually, but sometimes. Plus, you can always just go.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, and you know what? Being a Protogen, this is definitely interesting, and I know that we busted a lot of different things. Now, what's probably the most unusual features that are like one of the rare features of a Protogen? Like rare stuff. It could be anything.
Ooh. If you're talking about rarity, there are two different types. There's the rarity from the species guidelines, but there's also rare as in just design-wise and popularity.
I see.
The whole guidelines thing is another can of worms that we can or should probably delve in later. But for me, I haven't actually seen many Protogens that are actually not quite solid.
Really?
Think of it like goo or slime, that kind of thing.
I see.
Elementals.
Oh, so instead of being a Persian, you're basically like you're like this or whatever. You like liquid?
I have seen it quite a few times, but it is nice to branch out with different anatomies and stuff. And plus having different hybrids between different kinds of media like Pokemon, Digimon, other fandom species like Dutch Angel Dragons or Circles. I've never seen a Circle Protogen. I just realized that.
Yeah, those are actually rare. Any circle Protogens out there, hit us up in the comments section below. But yeah, you know
I'd
what?
love to see them.
I actually have never seen a Circle Protogen. I have seen some other Protogens in the past. And one last thing too is that I know that you went to Furry, and I know that you met up with my brother Arlo, the traveling Nardo. But what did you see from the Protogen meetup, or other Protogens that went to Furry Somna?
Ah, well, if I'm talking about Somna, may I get a costume change of myself?
Yeah, go for it. So here, for the magic of editing, so we're going to the last segment of this, and Amethyst over here actually wanted to give everybody the Protogen guidelines for this. And as you can see, we have this beautiful drawing here. I mean, my God, this is actually really cool. So now, Amethyst,
Just a simple diagram that I made in a few minutes.
That's brilliant. By the way, too, folks, you can see I've actually gotten out of the Protogen outfit because it's a little bit hot in there. So, so now, Amethyst, go ahead and show us the Protogen guidelines.
Of course. Well, as you can see from here, this is pretty much what your staple Protogen should look like. You have the armor, the right here, and on the visor, the shoulder panels, as well as some on the thighs.
That's right.
I just have hand panels because I haven't really seen that before, and I think it looks cool.
Yeah, it does look cool.
And 2 sets of ears. This is basically what your average Protogen is going to look like. Now, in red marker, I'm going to describe the different kinds of uncommon features.
Yeah.
So
hold on a sec. You have a yellow marker there. This is the red one.
Why, thank you.
And here, I'll go ahead and swap out. There we go. Here, go ahead and hang on to that, Mr. Foxy. Okay, go ahead.
Well, over here, of course, the main staple you would see is 2 sets of ears. That is
2 sets of ears.
Pretty much what you're going.
Amazing.
That's the most common uncommon trait, ironically, of what an uncommon Protogen looks like.
Interesting.
Some more features that you might see are more complex designs, such as maybe like fins, or such as small wings on the sides.
Wings, interesting.
Yeah, they're pretty small in comparison, not used for flight, but some Protogens use these as well as jetpacks to able to glide through the air. Not exactly flying, but falling with style.
Oh my God! Now I have this vision in my head of them basically just flying up and then just falling with style from Toy Story. That's a great visual. Oh my God, that's awesome. Okay, go ahead.
Well, for me, that kind of wraps up. Common and uncommon are pretty similar in that aspect.
I see.
But if I were to clear this and work on to the rare traits, now that is a can of worms, because usually rare traits would be restricted to having to being in the master list, a list of the official rares that the community and the creator recognize.
Right.
Now, I say get on it if you want to. It is a very big struggle involving a lottery and lots of money, but it's fine.
Okay.
Now, again, the most common rare trait is having 3 sets sets of ears this time.
Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm. It's
Now,
not that
yeah.
you can have a rare Protogen without having 3 sets of ears, but that's just what I've seen. And well, and again, if we're talking, Protogens regularly have the choice of either having a hand panel or a chest panel. The same ones as on the thigh, the shoulder, and the cheek, but in different locations. Now, a regular Protogen can't have both. You have to pick one or the other. Rare Protogen can have both.
Interesting. Huh. Okay. And so, what do they usually choose? Do they choose the chest or the head most often?
Most often, I see people choosing the head option because there's already 2 panels right here. Might as well add a third one for symmetry, I guess.
Good measure.
And oh, another feature of a Protogen is like having like you'll be able to like see inside here, like internal shots.
Wowzers.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but it does sound freaky.
Yeah, I think the last time I actually saw somebody with internals, it looked like a bunch of circuit boards and things like that, including like one of those cooling fans as well.
Ah, yes. Oh, no, one more thing is that they actually have fully functioning wings. Just quick little BS sketch here. Just to show. The wingspan would be more impressive than this, but
no, but that's
you can
still
see
impressive.
what I mean.
Nice. So these guys can actually use their wings to, fly and actually fly like an eagle.
Yeah, with actual lift and stuff.
Amazing. So if you see a Persian that have these big old wings and stuff like that, it's less likely that they're going to fall with style or they're going to smack into a freshly cleaned window, right?
Well, if they have the right training and programming, that is.
I love that response so much. That's amazing. Okay, so basically we now seen kind of like the uncommon and the rare ones, but Amethyst,
there are a few things. There are a few things that I haven't touched up on, like multiple limbs, multiple heads, having complex nanite magic stuff, but you can read it on your own time. The link to the Zor guidelines and the Zor lore are readily available using the zoruniverse.card. Don't really know the website off the top of my head, but it should be easy to look up for yourself.
Yeah, in fact, you know what? Either Amethyst or myself will find that link, and you'll find it down in the video description below, so that way you guys can also read more about it on your own time. Now, Amethyst, do you have a final word on the plight of the Persian and stuff like that, and to anybody that might be wanting to become a Persian?
Well, if I were to set this down over here, I would say that becoming a Protogen, like becoming any other species, it has its own set of rules, its own set of jokes, its own community, as I say. But I would say that, from personal experience, the Protogen community is a lot more tight-knit. It's very kind.
Would you say it was probably the kindest of the furry communities?
Well, the only community that I've been, but I would say that personally. Nice. I've never met a community that is willing to reach out to their fellow Proots.
Amazing. That is pretty good. So hopefully we've actually cleared up a lot of stuff, Protogen wise. And you know what too? This is actually going to be something pretty cool, because I think in some of these future Vrchat 101s, I'm going to be inviting a couple of different species to this, so that way they can sort of like debunk everything. Because you know what, just like how I mentioned about the fact that Protogens sometimes get a bad name and stuff like that, it's people like you who can debunk all this and put everybody on the right track if they want to become you or create their own Protogen.
Of course, I'm always willing to help people create their own Protogen designs. And
Yeah.
being an artist myself, I kind of have a creative vision for this kind of stuff. I love creating Protogens, and making designs in my own free time, even if it's in my head, is a very good creative exercise for me.
Nice. Well,
I've
that.
seen I've
Go
seen
ahead.
people create Protogens from a lot of different concepts.
Amazing. I
Like
mean,
such as fax machines, coffee makers, like to even more abstract and complex objects. And like I said, Protogens are a good base plate.
beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So yeah, so make sure you look for some more of these coming pretty soon because I would like to, talk to Tatums, Rexiums, and all kinds of different species and kind of like debunk some of them. In fact, if you're one of those people, hit me up here and who knows, maybe you might come on to VRChat 101. That's gonna do it for this episode. If you guys want to see more of this, make sure you hit the like button down below. Don't forget to comment and also subscribe as well. And who knows, you might see Amethyst appear on my channel a little bit more. I'm not sure in what capacity just yet, but you'll find out pretty soon. So for
make sure
Amethyst,
to ring Make sure to ring the bell notification so you get notified for every single video this Goober uploads. I
thank
hope to
you.
feature on the channel more. I hope to feature on the channel more often. And hey, I had a great time here. If any of you in the comment section below have their own Protogen OCs, send them down in the comments below. I'm sure it'll be delight to share with your fellow Protogens in the comments section.
That's absolutely right. So for Amethyst and of course Mr. Foxy, I'm Dr. Detroit, and I'll see you folks next time on another episode of VR Chat 101. Until then,
I've been
take care.
Amethyst, and this has been such a delight. Take care.